Hey, Chris Manning here from the Locked On Cavs podcast, coming to you on Wednesday, January 26th. Today's show is a fun one. It is a crossover with Kane Pittman from the Locked On Bucks podcast, getting you all set up for tonight's Cavs Bucks showdown in Cleveland at the 7 p.m. tip. Could have some standing implications, but we had a little fun crossover. Always want to talk to another great host in the Locked On Network, and Kane is one of the very, very best. I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Let's get into the show.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On crossover episode. I am one of your hosts, Kane Pittman from Locked On Bucks. You can hear and see me on that show daily and also find my work over at ESPN. And alongside me from Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning. You can also read his stuff at Chris, honestly, where? Forbes, Cleveland Mag, Fear the Sword. Is there anywhere you're not writing?
Too many places, okay. But shouts to Dime as well. That's probably like my favorite place right now. Shouts to the good folks over at Dime on Up Rocks.
Well, there's plenty to talk about the Cavs, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. And as always, we thank you for making either Locked On Bucks or Locked On Cavs your first listen of every day. And here's a suggestion for you tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening to this, after Bucks and Cavs. If you make Locked On Cavs your first listen, then make Locked On Bucks your second listen, or vice versa. We'll be both wrapping up this game. Second time the Bucks and the Cavs have played each other this season. Chris, can we start with some trivia? Because I was looking through this. So,
oh boy, hit me with it.
When was the last time the Cavs beat a Bucks team with Giannis on the floor? And I mean, obviously, you're not going to know the date. You can be rough with this.
Okay.
Not a hard quiz master.
It's got to be like the last LeBron year, maybe. So, like, are we going back to like 2018? Are we going back that far? Like, because like those Cavs teams post LeBron were atrocious, and like if the Bucks just steamroll them every time, like I've blacked out those seasons, even though like I covered them. Like I couldn't tell you like very little that happened, but like it's got to be like 2018, 2017, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so it's definitely hasn't been in the Bud era or the post LeBron era. So the Bucks are 10-2 against the Cavs. But the two losses have come with Giannis off the floor. That's in the Bud era. So we're going back to March 19, 2018. The Cavs beat the Bucks 124-117. Giannis had 37, 11, and 5. LeBron had a handy game. He had 40, 12, and 10. And LeBron and Giannis always used to have massive lines against each other. I feel like they both enjoyed the matchup. We know Giannis likes to test himself against those best players. Obviously, LeBron does as well. But we're going back a while. So Giannis is probable for this matchup today. So the Cavs are due, Chris. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, the tricky part about this is, you mentioned at the top that the Bucks are coming in off some rest. And, I think the Cavs are a little thin right now. They're a little tricky right now. I think we saw in the first game, I think they had a lot of problems like defending Jrue Holiday. I think he like has just a clear size advantage over Darius Garland if we're looking at this. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks just having like that rest advantage, even though they're on the road and all that stuff. Like, it feels like a game where I would think the Bucks would probably be favored to get another win here, just because, and they are favored in the BetOnline, but like they're just going to be a little bigger than Cleveland. It's like weird to say because Cleveland plays this like jumbo lineup with Mobley and Allen, and they'll start Dean Wade with Markkanen out, but like they're going to just kind of beat them up at certain spots. And we don't even know if Jarrett Allen will play because he's questionable due to a non-COVID illness. And like if Ed Davis has to play center, all respect to Ed Davis, an NBA, veteran legend here who's like just sticking in the league forever. But like that is not Jarrett Allen, who's playing at an all-star level. Like that's just going to be a problem for Cleveland. And again, like I think, we look back at that first game this year. I can't say like I went back and watched it before we recorded, but I looked at the box score, looked at my notes. I didn't have any inclination that game was like particularly competitive or particularly like I felt like the Cavs were, hanging with the Bucks in clear way. And they're tight in the standings and all that stuff. But I would guess, to me, I think the Bucks probably another favorite here just because of some of the structural advantages I think they have over Cleveland as we kind of eye these two teams up.
Yeah, I think I definitely didn't go back and watch that game. I think the Cavs won by 20 plus or whatever it was, but I know that was a game where Boogie Cousins started. The two-way player Sandro Mamukalashvili started for the Bucks. So there was some weird lineup stuff there, which, by the way, any random box score you look across the NBA now, you've got random players starting. That's certainly the case. So what's the deal with Jared Allen? How long has he been out? What is this illness? Is there any information? Do you think he's going to play?
It's questionable. Don't know if he's going to play. It's kind of hard to know. Like, we don't exactly know what the illness is. It's that because of the world we live in, we get the non-COVID designation because it's like, hey, this guy is sick, but it is not COVID. So like, it's fine, right? Like, it's a very clear, like, this isn't another issue. The Cavs have, I think, just like the Bucks have had their own issues with guys getting COVID already, and hopefully, it's the last time they'll deal with that for a while here. Fingers crossed for everyone. But yeah, I don't know if he'll play. I think if he's feeling good enough, he'll probably give it a go. We just don't know yet. We're recording this on Tuesday. This game on Wednesday. We'll probably would know more at shoot around before this game Wednesday morning. But I mean, if he doesn't play, Ed Davis has filled in amicably when they've needed him this year, but he's just not Jared Allen, and it's not something serious that's going to keep him out like a long period of time. But like it's just kind of one of those ill-timed things where you would certainly like to have him, like, just from a basketball viewer standpoint. Like, I would like to watch Jared Allen in this game, like defending Giannis at the 5 and stuff. Like, I would like to watch that stuff because that is where we're going to learn the most about these two teams. So if he doesn't play, that's kind of a bummer. And so fingers crossed that he's, by the time, you're watching this game and are thinking back to us talking about this, listeners or viewers, if you're on YouTube, you're like, hey, Jared Allen, they called this out. They talked about this, and it's going to be an important little thing.
They've both had moments against each other as well. The one thing that Jared Allen and obviously Giannis, they don't really take a step back, whether it's blocking a shot, whether it's trying to throw down the dunk. So they always have at least one highlight. So yeah, hopefully Jared Allen plays. To get to Jrue Holiday though, this is interesting because he's had his own issues all season long. He had ankle and foot stuff early in the season where he missed an extended period of time. Like most players in the league, he was in health and safety protocols. Then recently, he's had an ankle sprain again that has kept him out for a period of time. So it's been hard for him to really get a rhythm this season. But when I think about how other teams try and defend Jrue Holiday, the thing that's most interesting about him this year has been his frequency getting to the mid-range. So if you just look at, and this is per Cleaning the Glass, if you look at his shot frequency so far this season, at the rim, he's taken fewer attempts, 36% down to 31. 3-point is basically the same. It's around 31, 32% last year to this season. But in the mid-range, he's gone from 32% shot frequency to 39%, and he's shooting a career high 50% in the mid-range. And it's not the typical mid-range shot that you think of where a guy dribbles around the screen. Maybe a defense is playing drop coverage. He pulls up and he knocks it down. No, he's going to use his size. If he gets any guy on there that he thinks he has a strength advantage or a physicality advantage, he's going to back him down and shoot a little turnaround, and it's almost money. So when you had, and we had some notes prior to this show, and you had guarding Jrue Holiday, who is the appropriate matchup now from this team? Because he is so unique. He is such a unique player, obviously defensively, but offensively as well with his strength and size.
Yeah, I mean, I think strength-wise, it has to be Isaac Okoro. He is Cleveland's kind of point-of-attack defender, but I would suspect what will happen is you tell me if this is a wrong read, but I suspect what will happen. This happened late, in the previous matchup where we saw just some matchup kind of shenanigans kind of as the game goes on, and as they're kind of being more strategic about that stuff. They will use screens, they will use off-ball action, they will do what they can to get Darius Garland back on it, because I think that's the match we want to exploit. But I think if the Cavs are lining this up, I would suspect it's Mobley. The tricky part is that there's not a clean way to do it, because if Okoro defends Holiday, then who's you'd think he might defend Middleton, but if you're it becomes a tricky thing. I almost my thought was almost maybe you don't do it in this game, but if let's say these two teams play in the playoffs or something like that, or and they played the last game of the regular season, which in theory could be an important game for Eastern Conference seeding if things stay the way they are. It's weird to think about, but that's feels like 9 months away, but it's where we're headed. I almost wonder if the way to start is, okay, Darius, you hide on Dante, Okoro defends Holiday, Mobley goes on Middleton or something, and then you just try to Mobley, or then Allen on Giannis and you just try to like make do with some of this patchwork stuff. But then if Brook Lopez comes back and things like that complicates it as well. And there's not like a clean answer here, I think is the answer. I think the Cavs would like to have Okoro on him, but I don't know if that's like possible possession after possession after possession.
That'll be the interesting thing if we do get to that point where it's a playoff matchup and hopefully everyone's healthy and everyone's playing. Who slides where? If you're starting Markkanen and Allen and Mobley, what happens with Chris Middleton? It's just interesting. I mean, the Cavs are just so unique. There's no team doing what they're doing lineup-wise across the league that thinking about potential matchups is so strange.
Well, and what they've done a lot of the time is if teams are running ball screens at Markkanen in particular, and even sometimes the guards, but they'll basically just have Allen and Mobley switch everything. So like if like when they've put Markkanen on like the team's best wings, like he might have defended Middleton, and then he was just like, okay, like you're gonna run a ball screen where Middleton's gonna get a screener from who's ever playing the 5. Okay, that man is going to switch. So that's Mobley's guy. Mobley's going to switch it. If it's Allen's guy, Allen's going to switch it. Like they're not really trying to like have Markkanen fight over screens. They're just like, okay, try to go at, one of our 2 7-foot like defensive monsters and see how that works for you. And like, if you're the Bucks, you're probably okay with that because Middleton's a really good shot maker. And then it's Giannis who might be the best player alive if it's the other option. So, or even if it's Jrue, it's like, okay, like I would, you tell me if this is wrong, but I would like, if Jrue Holiday is in that position, he's probably going to make a smart play. Like that is what Jrue Holiday kind of does. Like that's one of the things that I think stood out to me most the last time his 2 teams played is like I would trust Jrue in this matchup, and I think just in general just do what he's going to do. And like I feel like that there's not really a bad option for Milwaukee as they're kind of looking at, like, it's not an easy problem to solve some of this, but if you're them, but it's also like it feels doable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would say the Bucks in general, this is what makes them probably unique to most contenders that have 2 or 3 superstars that maybe like to do it themselves. We know Giannis will score on his own and he can take over games, there's no doubt. But generally, whether it's Middleton, whether it's Jrue, whether it is Giannis, they do tend to make the right play and they're all pretty unselfish. And I think this has been the strange thing about the Bucks this year, to think that they won the title. It was only their first year together, that 3. So you got pretty good results in year 1, but there is some thought or some theory that they're continuing to learn to play with each other in year 2 here. It's been heavily interrupted for obvious reasons, but to this point, I think they're still figuring it out. And maybe that is a little bit to do with the shot changes or the different spots where Drew's finding his shots, Chris Middleton, Giannis, all these guys. So I think they're still working through some stuff. I think in general, you're right. That's why I find it so interesting, because if you have the smart veteran team that thinks that they can exploit a big matchup, are the Cavs, are they athletic enough? Does it just make sense for them to stay big? And are they able to curtail the paint and those types of things, which would be obviously what their goal would be against Giannis? It's interesting. I'm just so fascinated by this Cavs team.
Yeah, they're weird. They're fun. They're good. Maybe we'll get into that a little more, I think, after the break. But gonna pay some bills, and first gonna tell everyone about our friends at PrizePicks. Look, you've been hearing Kane and I tell you about PrizePicks for months now. It is daily fantasy made easy. I know not everyone everywhere can do it based on gambling laws and things, but PrizePicks, if you're able to participate, it's great. Right now with the code NBA, users get a $50 bonus, $50 for free. If on your first PrizePicks entry and you score a single point, you get $50 for free. How good is that? That's an exclusive offer just available to the Locked On Network listeners who use the code NBA. They have the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator, and they offer all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. All you got to do is pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus those projected numbers. So go to PrizePicks.com today or on your app store and download the app. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 for free if your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. That is right. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free if your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy.
Chris, I have a question from a viewer. Now, I sent the call out yesterday and I said, hit us in the YouTube comments, hit us on Twitter if you have any questions for Chris here on today's show. And it came from Brian Kurth, who, by the way, Brian is always, whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, he's always throwing questions. And I think one of the big fascinations, and we discussed this a little bit on yesterday's show regarding the Cavs, and I know we're going to get to the stand-ins and how tight it is. It's an absolute logjam in the East right now. But I think everyone just assumed that, okay, well, Colin Sexton's long-term injury, that's a blow. Okay, now Ricky Rubio's out for the season. The Cavs have been a great story. This has been fun to watch them play. They're going to drop off. Why haven't they dropped off? Who's been soaking up the minutes? And can you just talk us through a little bit about what the Cavs have been trying to get, how they've been trying to manage this the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think it's kind of still an ongoing adjustment. I think Darius Garland has headed you more and more and more and more. I think we've seen him have to take on even more responsibility. I think if you go back and watch some of the tape from the Knicks game on Monday, you saw the teams are starting to load up on him, and they're starting to pre-rotate towards him. They're starting to try to say, okay, we want you to pass to Isaac Okoro. We want you to pass to Evan Mobley, who is making strides, but is still sort of learning how to play with the ball in his hands, is still learning how to make smart decisions, and is still learning how to handle pressure from guys who are stronger than him when he gets the ball at the elbow. They've turned to Kevin Love at times, which is a very funny thing to say, but you're starting this in 2022, but you're seeing Kevin Love like operate out of the elbow, like and sort of do Minnesota-y Kevin Love things where he's whipping passes to guards coming off of screens and stuff. Like, they're kind of hodgepodging together offense. The other thing that they've done is, people probably know, they went out and traded for Rajon Rondo. Rondo has only appeared. He just played his first game in Cleveland as a member of the team on Monday because he had a hamstring injury. He was in COVID protocols when the trade went through. Comes out of COVID protocols. They're on a West Coast road trip. He then hurts his hamstring on that road trip, and then he missed a bunch of time, and he's only played 4 games for the team so far. They don't quite know how to use him yet. It's not a 1-for-1 Rubio replacement. It's not going to be that way. He plays at such a different tempo. You will see when he is not on the floor with Garland, he will do Rondo stuff and really slow the pace down and drag it out and just do what you'd expect Rajon Rondo to do. I don't know if they're going to close with him or not. Like that, these are some of the questions we still don't know. I think we're kind of JB Bickerstaff is figuring this out in real time. I think if you're an opposing team like the Bucks, I almost think you want them to maybe close with Rondo, because it's like, okay, that's another non-shooter on the floor. Like that's cool. Like we can navigate that, but it's Rondo and it's a lot of Darius Garland with like little splashes of Kevin Love and more chances for Evan Mobley. The Kevin Love thing, as someone who is like not seeing this day to day and is just like, I feel like you maybe go on Twitter or like you go look at box scores or whatever, and it's like, Kevin Love had another 20-point night. Like, does what has happened with him, like, has that been weird to like just observe it from afar? Because it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Did not expect this.
Well, I think for someone that doesn't watch the Cavs daily, I think it makes even less sense, because it was whatever it was 12 months ago where it's like, oh my God, this guy's a disaster. He's cracking it on the floor. He's throwing tantrums. He clearly doesn't want to be there. And I don't know what even caused the rejuvenation. Is it just the youth? Is it winning games? Because I wouldn't have put him down as a guy that I was projecting that was going to all of a sudden accept a role coming off the bench, particularly when you consider they've got 3 big guys starting. If you had told me the Cavs were going to start 3 big guys and Kevin Love was going to be off the bench, I would have said, no, he is not. He's going to refuse to play. He's going to leave the arena. He's going to move somewhere else in America and just do a Ben Simmons and refuse to come out and play.
The tweets would be like incredible, honestly. We'd get some like real passive aggressive. Yeah, I think
he win Sixth Man of the Year, by the way?
Oh,
that would be one of the most unlikely awards in the history of the league.
Well, Rubio would have been the Cavs guy that would have been the candidate for that, and then he tears his ACL.
Yes.
So he's not going to have the body of work. Jordan Clarkson's having a bad year.
Yes.
Ingles isn't playing at the level that he was last year, it doesn't seem like. Sorry, David Locke. We don't mean to take shots at your yes, but here we are. I mean, like, who else would pop out for that award if we're thinking about this? Like, this is one of those awards that I just sort of just like, just because we get so caught up in the teams we cover primarily, I feel like I don't have like always the best answers for this, but like, I would say, yeah, he could, which is bizarre to think about,
Has to be a chance. I mean, there's a lot of players in the league, not to be a biased Australian, but like Patty Mills, for instance, but he's right on the cusp. He's right on the cusp of starting. Coming up, you know what I mean? Like Kevin Love has just been a straight bench player. Has he started a game this year? Probably not.
Like
right?
Maybe 1 or 2, but like even when they've like even when Markkanen's now out like 6 weeks, they just said, okay, Dean Wade's going to go in and start, and we're going to keep Kevin in his role. Like they've kept him really in like tight 20-minute for the most part bursts, so he doesn't have to like play a ton of minutes, because they're just like, we don't want to have to overburden Kevin Love. Like it's not worth it to us to like really make him do a ton of stuff, and which frankly is like probably the right move, all things considered. Like there's just I would suspect like if you look at like when Brook, I mean you know better than me, but like when Brook comes back, like he probably isn't going to play 30 minutes a night right away. Like right, that's just not how this works. And Kevin's body is just in a very different spot. I wonder if they like I don't even know how to like handicap that, like or bet online like or anything like has like the lines up in that but I would think he could.
He'd have to be up there. The Bucks don't really have a guy. I mean, Bobby Portis has started way too many games, but he would have been the candidate from Milwaukee. People will say Pat Connaughton, but he's not going to win it. So, yeah, I mean, I would have to imagine Kevin Love would be up there. I don't know how many games Tyler Hero has started, but...
Tyler Hero is the current... Okay, this was on as of yesterday. Tyler Hero is the betting favorite by like a wide margin, minus 500.
Yeah.
Kelly Oubre is second at plus 1,800. And then it's Harold Brunson, Kevin Love, all at plus 4,000. So he's like in that second group.
I'm telling you, man, it would be remarkable. One of the most unlikely awards I think that we've seen in some time. But I tell you what is not unlikely, Chris, and that's our listeners enjoying Built Bar because it's a new year.
Facts.
It's a new year. So that means New Year's resolutions. And if yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. In my opinion, even better than a candy bar. And Built Bar makes it easier to stick to those resolutions because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky, waxy, or taste like a chemical spill, which I'm telling you, I don't know who's eating those bars, but I would not recommend that. Built Bars are healthy for you, which is the key. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. You can compare that to any other candy bar, but it's usually not at those numbers there. Maybe 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, but either way, it's not giving you what Built Bar is. So just go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
And let me ask you a question about the Eastern Conference, because the top of the East is jam-packed. It is tight right now. When you look at the standings and you look at where we're at, Cavs are, half a game behind the Bucks right now, 1 game behind in the win column, even in the loss column. Miami's number 1, but they're only a game ahead of the Bucks. And again, this top 6 is with the Sixers right there. Even the Hornets are only 2.5 back of the 6th seed at this point. What do you make of this jumble of teams we have here? Because it is both teams I clearly would have expected to be here. The Cavs being the team I wouldn't have expected to be here. But I still find myself looking at this and saying, okay, I think the Bucks are the team I think are the best in the conference. And then I'm probably going the Nets if they're healthy, and then the Heat. And like that's my 3. And then like you could give it, and like we'll see about the Bulls, we'll see about the Sixers if they don't make any trades. And the Cavs, I just need to see more. I still just kind of need to see a little bit more. But where are you at on kind of where we are with this jumble we kind of have at the top of the East right now? And again, in this game on Wednesday could ultimately matter in terms of seeding. Like it just where we are in the season. We're close to the All-Star break. We're over 50% of the way in. Like a game here or there could matter if we're kind of talking about like positioning of the playoffs right here. And this if the season ends today would be a first round matchup. As it stands. And I don't know if it'll hold because this is so tight, but like this would theoretically be a first round matchup if this went that way.
Yeah, and tiebreaker implications, all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, at the start of the season, I had the Bucks and the Nets in a category of their own, and then I had the teams like Miami and Philadelphia sort of below them. I still think Philadelphia is the wild card, and we'll see. It's kind of similar to last year, the way I'd viewed the Brooklyn Nets at the start of the season, where it's like, okay, well, they have Kyrie and KD. Clearly, they're going to be pretty good. But are they a team that's going to make a huge trade and bump themselves right up to the top? The Nets obviously did that with James Harden. The Sixers are kind of just sitting there and nobody knows what they're going to do, but we don't have to wait much longer because if Philadelphia don't make a trade, for me, they're still just going to sit in that tier below. They're good. They're good, but I don't think they're Milwaukee or Brooklyn in a series. I think it would be a hard ask to pick Philadelphia in a 7-game series. So I'm waiting to see what happens at the trade deadline because teams can make a move. The Cavs are one team that is interesting. You already mentioned Rajon Rondo, but I had this down as one of the questions for you as well. I don't know what the Bucks can do. I don't think there's a big move. I don't think there's a PJ Tucker move that they had last year that obviously proved pretty influential. Is there anything that the Cavs can do, though? And what's the sense you have with this franchise? Are they sitting there and saying, well, given what we've been through, this is well above par, and there's probably not much that can happen that this is going to be an average season. Like, either way this shakes out, like if the Cavs make the postseason and they lose in the first round, I'm not saying that's what the fans want, but it still has to be exceeding what the expectations were. Do you sense that the franchise wants to make a move, wants to have a crack this year, or do you think they're pretty content?
I think this season is like finding money in your pocket. Like, what is the currency in Australia? What is like the dollar? Like, what is the currency?
Just a good old Aussie dollar.
Okay, so you find 100 Aussie dollars in your coat pocket. You forgot you put it in there. You find it in your pocket.
Beautiful.
You're ecstatic, right? Like you're like, oh, whatever you want to do with it. You now have $100 you didn't know you had. I think that's what this Cavs season is ultimately, because I don't think they thought they were going to be this good. I think they thought they were going to be better. I don't know if they thought they were going to be like in the thick of it in the East. And like, I think they would say that this, I think if you got them like injected true serum into them, they would say, okay, like we don't think we're a real contender this year, but we're on our way to being something. I could see them making a move. I think, if people like what you're hearing here from me, Locked On Cavs on Friday, I'm talking to Tony East from Locked On Pacers about Caris LeVert. I think that's a name that makes sense for them. I think Buddy Hield can make sense for them. I think like Eric Gordon could make sense for them. I wonder what the price will be. And like the Rubio part of this becomes interesting because he's on this expiring contract. He theoretically could bring him back in the offseason anyway, but like you could trade that expiring contract and match salaries for LeVert, and it makes it easier than some of the other trade avenues they would have had to a trade like that. It's unfortunate. I think they'd rather have Rubio because he was so good and was just he was tons of fun. But like now you have this like almost $18 million salary to match for something out there without having to like cobble together like Sexton, who I don't know what's going to happen there, or like Osman, or like a bunch of these guys at the end of the roster that are making like $1.5 million, $2 million, right? Like that's where you would be. And so Rubio in theory is this chip to go out and do something with if you want to do it. LeVert's the name that I think I have become most interested in, just because I think they need another ball handler and need a bigger one. Is there a name, whether it's one I've said or one that kind of in your head that makes sense that you think would make this Cavs team, from what you've seen of them, kind of interesting? Is there like a name to you that would kind of be like, oh, like that would, even if it's, because I don't think the move would just be for this year. I think it would be a move that you want to help you, not just now, but next year and the year after. You want whoever you get to some degree to, I think, grow with Mobley and Garland and Allen, right? Like, I think that's the mindset you would probably have. Is there a name to you that would kind of make some sense if you were to kind of do that kind of move?
It's really interesting because the Rubio stuff, that's like the brutal side of the business. Like if he gets traded, everyone feels bad for him. It's like, it sucks because he was playing so well, but also it would make sense for the Cavs from a business perspective to make that move. LeVert is interesting. I was thinking about this earlier today and I was wondering what trade would make sense. And going back 12 months ago, you had the trade where Portland picked up Norm Powell. Toronto got Gary Trent Jr., but a guy like that does make some sense because I think the Cavs I don't know what they're going to do with Colin Sexton. You would have more of an idea than me.
I don't think anyone knows if we're keeping it, because it's like what do you do for a guy who's going into RFA? You're going to pay Garland a ton of money. Are you also going to give Sexton a ton of money when he's coming off a major injury? That's not fair to him, like at all. Like it sucks, but it's like he got hurt at the worst possible time. Like I cannot think of a worse timed injury in for a lot of reasons for a Cavs player in recent memory than when Colin Sexton got hurt.
So I think it's that third guy, right? You have Mobley, you have Garland, who you say, okay, well, we've got two pieces that we think we can really lock in for the future, hopefully anyway, and they become stars for you guys. I think it's a third scorer. So yeah, one of those guys. I mean, LeVert would make some sense. Clearly, he's been a little injury prone. It's up in the air where his ceiling actually is. He's been around for quite a while. He's older than you think. But yeah, I mean, that makes some sense for me. I looked at the Cavs, and just because Mobley's been so damn good, and this is the comparison I made on the podcast yesterday, is that they kind of feel like they're last year's Hornets, where they were up around that 5 or 6 seed, and it's like they were above expectations. They had a rookie that everyone was enjoying watching. Unfortunately, injuries caught up with them, and they ended up back in the play-in tournament. So I'm interested to see whether the Cavs can hang on. I hope they can, but we'll see. It does take its toll. Like you said, there's still a fair bit of season to play.
If there's one thing I would like the Cavs, actually, if they were going to be dumb enough to ask me for advice, I would say actually learn from Budenholzer, because I think what I understand in the playoffs, and you could tell me what your thoughts on it were, but like when you get to the playoffs, like maybe just play Giannis like more minutes at a certain point,
Yeah.
But I think in the regular season, I think the maintenance he has done to that roster is like actually really, really smart. I think like maybe the depth, like maybe that drives fans nuts on Twitter or whatever, because like they want to win every game. But like if you're playing the long game and you understand that this is a long season and you're gonna have to play into the spring if you make the playoffs and you have aspirations to do that. Like Darius Garland has played like 37, 38 minutes a night. Evan Mobley has played 40 minutes a couple of times this year. Jared Allen has got up to there a couple of times. Like JB clearly trusts like maybe 6 guys on this team. And then he's like, I guess I have to play Jetty Osman 11 minutes just so like, because I have to. Kevin, like he trusts, but he's only willing to extend him out like to like 25 just in the sake of keeping him healthy. I think like learning from the Bucks in terms of just like playing a little more roster maintenance would like help the Cavs kind of achieve the goal you're talking about. I understand like you're going to have them play 37 sometimes if you're playing a close game, and especially when you get down to the end of the season. But like I think there's just like a little bit of the foot has been to me the last couple of games in particular they've looked a little sluggish, and I don't like it's hard to prove this stuff. They're never going to come out and tell us in media sessions like, hey, like we're exhausted. Like they're never going to just give us that candor that we might be looking for, but at least on that stuff. But I think this is a team that's like got a little bit of like could use just a little bit of like a week and like a back to tank to just like regenerate itself. Like the Bucks coming in off 3 days rest as the Cavs like have like played twice in Saturday, which isn't crazy, but like there's going to be a big rest advantage in this game. And I think the Cavs should look at Milwaukee and say, okay, like if you want to get somewhere, maybe we need to play this as a long game a little bit instead of like running our guys like into the ground, especially because like this team is not deep. Like there's like not, this team is not a particularly deep team, especially with injuries to, Markkanen, Rubio, Rondo's just coming back from a hamstring. Like this isn't a particularly deep team at the moment. And, but I think if they're going to stay above that play-in fray, which I think they have a good shot of doing, I think they got to be a little healthier as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, that's the flip side of the whole Budenholzer argument that we've seen over the last couple of years. The Bucks had such a regimented scheme on offense, a regimented scheme on defense, that they could go 12 deep and everyone knew where they were going to be. And the consistency from night to night that so many teams struggle with over the course of the regular season, the Bucks just didn't. So I think for a lot of coaches, they sit there and say, well, if I don't play these guys these minutes, you spoke about the trust factor, then we're going to lose. And we're going to lose a lot of games. Whereas the Bucks were fortunate enough that either they could play Giannis enough in the first half that the game is over, or they just have a bunch of role players that they trust to play, big minutes, like a guy like Pat Connaughton, who they got for nothing essentially, and he ended up being a 25-minute a night player. Bobby Portis, who's come in and he fits. They trust him. Veterans like George Hill that they got in that initial trade with the Cavs going back a couple of years ago. So they've just got so many guys that they trust, and I think it's a luxury that they've had, and that's why they've been able to win so many games. But certainly it's a benefit getting into the postseason. There's no doubt.
Forgot about George Hill, honestly. Sometimes I just
Georgie playing well this year, by the way.
That's good. I'm glad. He infamous Cleveland run, unfortunately for him, just how it ended. But
Philly fans don't like him either. They when the Bucks signed him this year, trust me, Twitter was all Philly fans saying he's washed anyway. He sucks. Came back to Milwaukee, he's great again. What do you say? You got to be happy in your environment.
Yeah. What do you? Let me ask you this as we wrap up. Who, if you could pick a first round series for the Bucks to get today, just that you'd want to see, what would you want?
For what purpose? Entertainment value?
For vibes. Just for vibes. Just entertainment. Like, because like obviously if you're gonna be them, you want to get up to 1 and then get like whatever like crappy team in the 10-11 range. Unless you don't, like maybe Atlanta gets to 8 and then you have to deal with Atlanta. Which in the first round, that's probably the least fun just because of the Trey factor. But if you could like pick one of these, let's change the question. One of the top 6. So Miami, Chicago, the Nets, the Bucks, the Cavs, the Sixers. Take obviously the Bucks out, but you could see them play one of those 5 in the top 6. Who would you want to see them play just from an entertainment standpoint? And maybe rule out the Nets just because the Nets are the Nets.
Well, I don't think that there would be too many Bucks fans that would be thrilled about the matchup, but there is one series that has been brewing for years and years and years, and we've never been able to see it. Bucks and Sixers, I think, for the world, the country, would be an entertaining matchup to see Giannis and Embiid go at it. They've kind of both been teams that are seen as, okay, they're going to be champions in the East. They're going to be battling. There's going to be conference finals. They've had really fiery, heated regular season matchups. and then they've never had the postseason. They've always ended up on the other side, or the Sixers choke like they did last year. There's all sorts of scenarios. But Bucks and Sixers, they're destined to play each other at some point. So I guess I'll say the Sixers.
I think Cavs Heat would be fun, and I think Cavs Sixers would be fun. Cavs Sixers just because I want to see Allen and Mobley have to defend Embiid, who's playing at like an MVP level. I just want to see it. I will say I think the matchup I think the Cavs would definitely lose if they get in the first round would be Milwaukee. Like that's the one if I'm them. If they have to like lose the last game of the season to like be this, even if it means they're the 6th seed and they're playing like the Bulls in the round one, I think the Bucks would be the hardest team for them to play in round one for looking ahead that far. Which I didn't think you and I would be talking about a potential playoff matchup in January. I thought it'd be like, oh, like let me look at Paolo and Cheryl highlights and Chet Holmgren. Like, can Chet play with Evan? Like that'd be the kind of things I'd be talking about. And here we are. I'm wondering, what could a playoff matchup look like? It's weird times, Kane. It's weird times.
It is weird times, but it's fun for the Cavs. And I will say, yeah, I mean, that would be a tough matchup for Cleveland. As much as everyone loves Evan Mobley and he's going to be the rookie of the year and he's fantastic, having to deal with Giannis running at you for a rookie night after night in a series is proven to be not fun.
Even if I think Giannis is the guy he should look at in terms, he keeps talking. He's said a lot this year. He's talked about adding bulk. Giannis is the guy that sets the temp. Like they're not the same guy. I don't want to say that Evan's going to be as good as Giannis because that is blasphemous to say because he's a rookie and Giannis might be the best player alive. The bulk how Giannis has added bulk is the template for how NBA guys that are that skinny should add bulk. Yeah. And like if Evan can figure out how to do that, that's the fun. That's where like this
minus 10% really body fat. Is that what you know?
Yeah, like minus 10. What like does Giannis still do smoothies? Is he just like inhaling like protein smoothies at this point? Like double whey, some collagen, Built bars grinded up in there. Like what is he doing?
I think he can eat literally whatever he wants because he works out so much it doesn't even matter. I mean, the guy's just I mean, he is literally a freak. It's unbelievable. Yeah. But this has been good. I was trying to think about the last time we caught up. I know we did have a George Hill podcast at some point, but it's been a long time.
I said to you before we hit live. Cavs, anything pre-COVID feels like fake time. So
it's true. But this game, Bucks and Cavs on Wednesday nights is 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time for those in Australia trying to tune into this game. But hey, it's going to be fun.
Delhi absolutely, hopefully watching this game is what I think we're saying here.
Delhi is about 30 minutes away from playing a game here in Melbourne. So I'm going to be on the couch watching that one. So that's going to be a bit of fun. He had a 33-point game the other day, 7 threes. Who would have thought? Delhi. I
saw him get dunked on this year, and that made me a little sad.
That was unfortunate. That was an unfortunate moment for him. But he bounced straight back up. Typical Delhi. But Bucks fans, Cavs fans, I think for the most part, everyone loves Delhi.
Yeah.
All right. Let's leave it here, Chris. We will catch up again, potentially in the postseason. Who knows?
Yeah, at the very least, I think we should touch base end of the regular season when these two teams play in the last day of the regular season. We have to potentially think about playoff seeding. What a world.
All right. That's Chris Manning. You can hear him on Locked On Cavs Daily. I'm Kane Pittman. You can hear me on Locked On Bucks Daily. Bucks and Cavs tonight coming up. Enjoy the game. We'll be back on our shows. Check them both out. We'll speak to you guys then.